Hello YouTube again. This is Brandon. Just wanted to make a follow-up video about tetralogy of flow, my congenital heart disease that I was born with. It's a rare condition. It's something that only a handful of people deal with. So I wanted to kind of give a little bit more insight into my experience, and I got some information from my mother about how she felt in regards to me, her son, being diagnosed with tetralogy of flow, and her experience through my birth up till now at this point in my life. So, if you have tetralogy of flow, or you have a child that has tetralogy of flow, just hopefully you'll get some valuable knowledge and insight into this congenital heart disease, so it can put your mind at ease, or at least answer some questions you might have from someone who's had to deal with it or experience it. So when I was born, my mother, or before I was born, my mother said that the ultrasounds and the prenatal visitation with the OBGYN were good. They didn't recognize any defect in my heart when I was in the womb. They didn't know that there was anything wrong with me. So when I was born, I was not premature. My mom said that I was 7 pounds, a little over 7 pounds at birth. So that was, I guess, a decent weight. When I was born, it was a regular birth, a vaginal birth. When I was born, my mom said that the doctors and the nurses had me, and they all were hovering over me. And they weren't really saying anything. She asked them what was wrong, because usually the mother gets the baby handed to her right after birth when they clean the baby up or wrap him up in a little blanket and a little hat. So she asked them what was wrong. They immediately said, "We are rushing your baby down to a Cleveland hospital, which is called Rainbow's Babies and Children." It's just a specific youth hospital and baby hospital. So I think a day passed, and she said, she asked the doctor, "Doc, I need to be around my baby. I need to be around him. No parent has to have their kid whisked away and not be able to hold them, or experience the birth in the first days of my life." So the doctor wrote off on it and said, "Well, as long as you're feeling good and as long as you believe you don't need to stay here," then he allowed her to leave to go down to the other hospital with me. That hospital monitored me, she said, for a couple days, handful of days, and to that effect, she was upset. She didn't know what was wrong. She might have thought it was something she did. Maybe it was something that she didn't do right. But nonetheless, she was very worried. She came down. She stayed with me. She took me home, and they said that, all right, they didn't initially do the surgeries because they said it wasn't, I guess, immediate at the time. So they just monitored me for a couple days, and then they sent me home. Over the course of the next 2 years, my mother told me that they had me going to, like, every other month there was a checkup. And then it went to about every 6 months. So then it got to the point where one day I had gotten a cold, and my mother said that usually when I would wake up or rustle around like all babies do, they start crying, they start making noises, they're awake. She said one day she didn't hear me rustling around at the normal time, so she went in to check on me with my father, and I wasn't moving. I was very pale, and it almost looked like I was lifeless. I didn't have a fever. She said that it might have been due to maybe the congenital heart disease, tetralogy of flow. Maybe it played a role in maybe my immune system not being up to par. But they went and they called the emergency services, the EMS, and they came and they took me to the hospital. I did have pneumonia. Had a lot of mucus in my lungs. Was in real bad shape. She also had mentioned that they said I had a lot of buildup of mucus, so they had told her to pat me on the back and pat me on the front, so front and back. Pretty forceful to try to shake up the mucus. And then they came in with a suction tube that they use to get mucus out of lungs. And she said that they did that, and that was a pretty rough experience for her to see, such a young, less than 2-year-old being having to go through that. So all this time, my mother was upset. She was worried. She was sad. She was just bewildered. She didn't know what to think. So if you're a mother and you have a very young child that has this congenital heart disease, keep an eye on them. I know medical advancements are always moving. Things are always getting better. Things are always progressing. But, a keen eye is always best, suited to notice something that isn't, normal or out of the ordinary. So they had the suction. They suctioned my lungs out for a few days. They had me on some antibiotics. I did get better, but they noticed that that I had a hole in the one chamber of my heart. I had a couple of the symptoms of tetralogy of flow. That I think there's 4 main symptoms, and narrowing arteries is one of them. And they said, well, we have to do immediate surgery to correct this, or he's not going to survive. So they went ahead, they did the surgery. I was at my grandfather's house, and I turned blue, very blue, very limp. So that was the build-up to the surgery. I was at my grandfather's house, turned blue. I guess oxygen wasn't getting where it needed to go. Oxygenated blood was backing up in the heart chamber, and it just wasn't being pushed through right. So I stand corrected. I was in the hospital with pneumonia, but then after they sent me home, and then I turned blue, went to the hospital, and they noticed that my oxygenated blood wasn't getting to where it needed to be. What they did for that surgery, they patched the hole in the one chamber of the heart, which is one of the tetralogy of flow symptoms. They also ballooned an artery, one of the major heart arteries. They went ahead to go in and balloon it. I wasn't on a feeding tube, but there is a little scar, and it almost looks like a second belly button. I was always kind of not picked on, but the other kids in the neighborhood, when I had my shirt off, they would say, "Oh, it's second belly button. It's he got 2 belly buttons." And it never bothered me, but I found out that was because the hole that they put in there when they did the surgery, they were clearing out extra fluids from that tube, that incision. And that incision is approximately 2 inches below the bottom part of the middle sternum. So if you figure probably 3 fingers right below the bottom part of the middle part of your rib cage there. So they had to take the extra fluid away from my heart, out of my system. My mom said that they had me on Lasix, which is a water type of pill to get water off of your body. When I got out of surgery, I recovered quickly. And then growing up, from the ages of what is it, two and a couple months to in my early adolescent years, my mother and father didn't coddle me. They didn't treat me as if I was uh, a child that was any different from my older brother. My older brother was healthy. He didn't have a heart problem, and the other kids in the neighborhood, they were healthy and normal. And my parents just said, "Hey, you know what? We're not going to treat you any different. If you feel bad, then let us know." But aside from that, they didn't coddle me. They didn't treat me as if I was needy or you know in need. Honestly, growing up in my early years, I've had tons of energy. I was like any other random young child, just wanting to run around, wanting to play, wanting to get out there with the other people in the neighborhood and playground and school. And my mom and dad put me in soccer and basketball and you name it, I was always running around. Um, I had cousins my age too, so that sort of helped. I guess me not think about it as much. But what child, if they're not having symptoms, thinks about what issue they have. One thing to mention though is that my father's side of the family had heart disease. Heart disease runs on my father's side of the family. Um, I didn't know that until as I got older, maybe in my teenage years, but it's just odd that I was the one born with a congenital heart disease, and believe it or not, I'm really the only one left alive, ironically, which is crazy to think about. My older brother passed away, my dad passed away, my uncle, my grandmother herself, everybody on that side of the family passed away, and they weren't born with a heart issue. So I'm thankful that I'm still here. So if you do have this, a congenital heart disease, it isn't writing you off in any type of way. If you don't feel bad, if your child doesn't feel bad, don't coddle them. Don't coddle him or her. Just let them be a child and let them do what normal children do. Um, and growing up, I was always very active, out at the park, playing basketball, playing football, playground, whatever the case may be. And I never had any symptoms. Fast forward up until age 9, I went for my normal checkup, which your child, or if you're the one with the heart disease, you'll always have yearly checkups, or every 6 months, or with a cardiologist. They just want to monitor what is going on and if you're having any issues. As I said in a previous video, you will have a Holter monitor, which is a tape recorder. It records the rhythm of your heart, records any irregular episodes, any beats that are off, anything they should be aware of. It lets them know, hey, this was an event that isn't normal, so you got to keep an eye on it. Back in the day, they were very much a bigger type of mechanism. It was probably the size of a small Walkman, a small like boombox. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's cassettes. Cassette tapes were about that big, probably like 3 inches by, I don't know, 3.5 inches, and the tape player was probably bigger, probably say the size of maybe like I'm trying to relate it to something maybe the size of like maybe a six pack of soda or pop. But that had a strap. Strap went around over the back. And then wires. There were so many wires. There was, I don't know, 6, 7 wires that were hooked up. So they're going to monitor you that way. But thankfully nowadays they have smaller versions of the heart monitor. It's a very small thing. It's about 3 inches long by 1.5 inches wide, and it goes right here. So no wires, no leads, no tape, no big, 6-pack of pop looking mechanism to lug around. So I went in. They saw something. I had surgery. I had to get one of my arteries ballooned. They had to go in through an incision in my leg, very small incision. Went in there. I was only in the hospital maybe a day. My mom said that she never noticed any symptoms of me. I didn't have any symptoms leading up to that. They just noticed something wasn't exactly right on the echo or the telemetry unit, which is the heart monitor itself. So I went in. They did the surgery. It was same day. It was a very short surgery, relatively painless, and one good thing is that when you do have a surgery and you're young like that, you get all the popsicles or ice cream or sweets or whatever you want. They get it for you. They want to make you feel better. So that was a good positive thing. If your child or you have to have a ballooned artery, nothing to worry about. I was never worried about any surgery I ever had, and believe it or not, my parents weren't worried about that surgery as well. So the incision healed pretty quick. I was out of the hospital the next day. So after that, still had no symptoms. I wasn't lightheaded. I wasn't fatigued. I wasn't, worried. Just went. It was back to business. Back to being normal. Back to being a 9-10-year-old. Just going to school, hanging out with friends, playing sports, carrying on. And then I was involved in the sports continuing. Very physical, very active. So if you are having symptoms, though, you definitely want to make that known to your parent, or if your child's having symptoms, you definitely want to bring it up to the cardiologist. Even if they say, "Oh, we'll see you next year," just bring it up. Just give them a call, let them know, "Hey, my child," or "Hey, they're feeling this kind of way." Don't let anything go. So through high school, lifted weights, played sports, was very active, overly active, I think. People always said I was extra, I don't want to say crazy, but extra out there as far as being physically active. So if you're not feeling any symptoms, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Sky's the limit. So that's one good note. If you don't feel any symptoms and you have this diagnosis, don't feel like it's going to drag you down, because it never really did for me. So moving forward from age 9 till it was all the way up until I was 27. Believe it or not, didn't have any symptoms. Wasn't fatigued. Wasn't under the weather at all. Then I started feeling very lightheaded, very fatigued, very just tired. I'd drink caffeine, drinks with caffeine in it. And that usually would pick me up, but the lightheadedness was just there, constant. So I stopped drinking the caffeine, and the lightheadedness didn't go away. Got a lot of rest for a couple days every day. I was fatigued. I was tired. I was very lightheaded. Almost, it isn't like anything's spinning, but it's just that, maybe if you're on like a ship or a boat, you're just very uneasy. And people noticed it. My mom said, "Are you feeling okay?" Because I guess I was a little shade of blue or gray. And my mom said, "You don't look good." And I said, "Well, I don't feel good." And my grandfather also mentioned, he said, you're blue. I'm taking you to the hospital. Of course, I was reluctant and I was rebellious. I thought, I'm young. I'm just under the weather. Yeah, I'll get over it. Everything will be fine, like most of us do. We don't want to go to the doctor until we absolutely have to. Some of us are just stubborn like that. So, but I was forced to go in. They convinced me to go in. Believe it or not, I went in 3 different times to the emergency room. First time they said that it was vertigo, like it was my inner ear causing the lightheadedness. They gave me some pills for that. I don't remember what the pills were, but I took them. They didn't help. So I just was like, all right, you know what? Fair enough. I went in. I did my due diligence. I got checked. Doctors know what doctors know. A couple days later, still felt horrible. I went back in. They said, we just saw you. But I'm still not good. They sent me away, told me that, maybe I was dehydrated. I need to drink more water, take some vitamins, etc., etc. Well, I did that. About 4 or 5 days later, still was feeling weird, lightheaded, uneasy, and still had that shade of blue. So I went back in, and finally they said, your pulmonic valve is leaking. It's regurgitating, meaning when the valve opens, it's supposed to let the blood out, come back down, blood pumps in, valve opens, goes out. Well, mine was opening, the blood was trickling out, but some of it was trickling back in. So my valve was doing this, it was almost fluttering. It's supposed to open, go out, come back down. It was going up, fluttering, coming back in, letting all that unoxygenated blood back into the chamber, and then it was closing. So my heart was essentially working twice as hard to pump out the same blood to my extremities and things. So oxygen wasn't getting to where it needed to be. My lungs and my brain and even my blood vessels, and that's why I was turning blue. So if you do notice that you're turning maybe off color, don't wait, don't hesitate, get your child checked. If you're the person with it, get checked. It's a phone call away. Call the EMS, they'll rush to you. Hey, if you're worried about the money aspect of it, money doesn't mean anything if you're not here anymore. So I don't want to get, on that type of topic, but we're talking about life here. So I went ahead and they told me that I needed surgery. Open heart surgery, where they split the sternum, open the rib cage, and do their work. Put the rib cage back, staple it back together, stitch you up. So my pulmonic valve needed changed. There was 2 options. One was to get a artificial heart valve, which is man-made. That one, you get it placed in one time, and you never have to get it changed ever again. The downside to that is that if you get that, you have to be on blood thinner medication for the rest of your life. I'm very reckless when it comes to getting scratches and bumps and bruises and cuts that I couldn't do that myself. If you want to get that, then that's your decision. But the second option, if you don't get the artificial valve, the man-made valve, is you get a natural valve, an animal valve. I had gotten a pig valve. You get that, they put it in the same way. The positive to it is that you don't have to take blood thinners. The downside to it is that every 10 to 15 years, you're going to have to get that replaced. You're going to have another surgery. This whole time during the surgery, up to the surgery, my mom was worried about me. But when I went down to the hospital to get the surgery done, she didn't want to come down there. And it wasn't because she didn't care about me or love me. She just wanted to... She believed that if If I was down there, I'm getting treated the treatment that I need. If there's nothing that she could do for me there, and that's her decision, and you might feel different if you're a parent of your child, but I did have other family there that was waiting for me. When I went in to see the surgeon, there was a weird aura in his office. Like, he just had this aura about him, and it was a positive aura. It made me feel comfortable. And he told me, I'm going to be the one taking care of this today. And I immediately had 100% faith in him. Like, something just, maybe it was God talking to me. He said, "You just let me know, this is the guy that is going to take care of you. There's no worry, no doubt." And I felt complete trust in that surgeon. Needless to say, when I went in, I said a quick prayer. I said, if this is my time to go, I would just be sad that the people that care about me here would be left without me. This is part of life, so excuse me for mentioning things that might, be upsetting in a way, shape, or form to you or your child. So went in, got the surgery. Post-recovery, when I woke up, I had a breathing tube in my lungs. I couldn't see anything. I was still, I guess, drowsy from the sleeping medication, or, the surgery does feel like it goes by like that. It's counting backwards from 10, 9, passed out. It felt like 30 seconds, and bang, I was back awake. The air tube was in my lungs. Most uncomfortable feeling when you wake up to have something like that all the way down into your lungs. We're just not used to that. We're not used to that being the case. But when I came to, I felt that. I tried to lift my arm up, and I was under restraints. They restrain your wrists so you don't injure yourself by trying to remove it. I didn't know that. So, forewarning, if you do have to get surgery like that, they will have an air tube in you, a breathing tube, and you won't be able to remove that. Luckily, my brother was there, and he said, "What's wrong with you?" And I just pointed up to my breathing tube, and he said, "Hey, somebody get this breathing tube out of him." When they pulled it out, it was one of the most relieving feelings that I've ever had. I could breathe on my own. And when I came to, I was doped up. I was, still medicated. But they said 2 months recovery. You can't even lift a half gallon of milk because it'll put too much strain on the chest muscles, and they needed that to heal. So I basically had to sit on my hands and do nothing for 2 months. At least nothing as physical as I was used to. It's a big shock if you're very physical to have that type of surgery, because it almost feels like you can't do anything. And I had a difficult time with that, I'm not going to lie. But thankfully I had a decent amount of people around me that cared, that were loving, and they helped me get through every day. You will have to go through physical therapy to rework the muscles of the chest and to get you back up to speed. But it's needed, and they'll help you to feel as comfortable as possible with medication or with, whatever the case may be. That being said, since then, had checkups. It's just going to be an ongoing thing for you. You're always going to have checkups. You're always going to have, the monitors. I still have the monitors to this day. I just had one 2 weeks ago. Just to make sure nothing extra serious is going on. But since that surgery for the replacement of the heart valve, I have been feeling lightheaded, more consistent than I had before. And they said, we repaired a part of your heart. That's just the new normal, is what they said. So it's kind of a disheartening feeling to know that, you will feel that way afterwards. And I haven't felt, I guess, normal since. So it does affect me here and there. I'm not going to, lie. It does affect my mood here and there because you're healthy and everything's fine, and then out of nowhere, now things are in a new normal, and it's not exactly good. But anytime I'm around, my family, my mother, she always asks how I'm doing. Sometimes I'll give her the truth and say, I'm not exactly feeling too well, and I know she's worried, and I guess that's just a motherly instinct. Sometimes she'll be sad about me not feeling good and think she had something to do with causing it. And maybe it's true. Maybe there was something she did. I don't put the blame on it. This is what I have to deal with. If it's something you have to deal with, then you don't put the blame on anyone. It is what it is. It's what you got to deal with. People are dealing with far worse, and some people are dealing with way better. So, but if you just got to make through each and every day, one day at a time, that's the advice I'm going to give you. Every day is a blessing, to be honest. That's just how I approach life with anything anymore. And life is just a blessing. That's just it. Every sunrise is a gift. There's people around you that care about you, that are worried about you. They worry about you because they love you. And I'm aware of that. So, but, parents won't stop worrying about you, especially if you tell them the truth. If you lie to them and tell them, hey, I'm not feeling too well, they probably won't believe you and they'll still worry. So, from a mother's standpoint, it was always something, to worry about your child. I'm up to 36 right now, and I'm getting ready to have another surgery. I don't know when, but it's probably going to be within the next 3 or 4 years, because I'm at the 9-year mark now, almost 10-year mark. So 10 to 15 years, that's just what it is. But there is a plus to that. They don't have to do the splitting of the sternum anymore, surgery. They said that from now on they only have to go through a small inch incision through your thigh, and they can replace the heart valve that way. So less recovery, less trauma, less pain, less aggravation. So medicine's always advancing, like I said before, and that's definitely a plus. So if you're having to have valve replacement due to this congenital heart disease or something else, don't fret. You're in good hands, especially if you're in Cleveland. Best heart doctors in the world. I knew many patients that came, out of town from Australia, from different countries, just to get treated here. So if you do have to have heart surgery or heart, anything to do with your heart, cardiovascular, if you get sent to Cleveland, there's no better place to be. There's no better hands to be trustful of. But if you're a parent and you've watched this video, hit like and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm willing to answer any questions you might have that I maybe didn't touch on in this video. You being a parent, maybe you're just maybe you're a single father of a child who has it. If you're a single mother, if you're dual parents, if you're the patient themselves, if you're a young person who has this congenital heart defect and you want to ask me something, feel free. Reach out. Like I said, I'll answer any questions you might have that I didn't touch on in the video. But if you are a parent, keep your head up. Like I said, it didn't really affect me until 27. So, and who's to say your child might not be affected for even longer. So, but just stay positive. Don't beat yourself up. Don't blame yourself. Just keep a positive attitude about it. And, everything's going to be all right. All right? Thanks a lot. I'll see you guys in another video.